Welcome back to Upper 90. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Justin and I am a journalist in MLS, mostly for LAFC. But we are talking about the Eastern Conference today, and I'm going to identify one player that your club needs to sign before the season starts. And we can start, of course, with Atlanta United, and their position of need is rather obvious. They need a Joseph Martinez replacement. He's off to Miami, and they need a pure striker to score the goals up top for them. And Atlanta United fans will want a big name signing or a big transfer fee. And I'm not sure that this accomplishes either one of those, but Georgios Giacomakis is absolutely the guy that will make Atlanta United fans happy. He's a 28-year-old Greek international currently playing for Celtic in Scotland, but they're seemingly willing to let him go despite him scoring 9 goals in all competitions this season. But the most impressive thing in his career, 2 years ago, he won the Eredivisie Golden Boot, scoring 26 goals in 30 matches, and that was 7 more than the second place finisher, who happened to be Daniel Malin, of course, now playing at Borussia Dortmund. And by the way, Giacomakis did it for a team that got relegated. Meanwhile, Daniel Malin was on PSV, who finished second in the league that season. The MLS and Scottish Premiership seem to be developing a good relationship, so I would definitely get this done as fast as possible if I was Atlanta before another team snatches him up. Next up is Charlotte FC, and before I get to the player that they need to sign, I have to say RIP Anton Walkes, of course, tragically dying in that boat accident, as I'm finding out earlier today as I'm recording it. It is just tragic news, but as it pertains to this video, of course, it does mean Charlotte FC need to sign a new center back, and it needs to be a good center back, the quality of Anton Walkes, or better. My pick is 25-year-old Barnsley center back Mads Huell Anderson, who is an absolute monster in League One, the third tier of English football, and for that reason he might go a little bit under the radar for MLS teams. But he is Barnsley's captain at 25 years old, which tells you all you need to know about his leadership abilities. And his contract expires in 6 months, so I believe a championship side will certainly snatch him up in the summer. But in my opinion, an MLS side should try and beat them to it this winter, and that side should definitely be Charlotte FC. Chicago Fire are up next, and they have money to spend after selling John Duran to Aston Villa and, of course, Gaga Slonina to Chelsea earlier this season. They made nearly $30 million off of those sales, so they are going to look to replace that U22 initiative slot in John Duran and probably in an attacking position, so that is the position I'm going to look to fill. U22 initiative spots are really where spenders can separate themselves from the rest of the pack in MLS, and with Chicago having this huge influx of money, I say they do exactly that by signing 20-year-old striker Santiago Munoz, who is of course a very hyped product out of Mexico. He of course went on loan to Newcastle, but it didn't really work out there, and he's back at Santos Laguna where his contract expires in 6 months, so maybe they're willing to cash in on the 20-year-old. I say Chicago Fire makes a statement for not only themselves, but all of MLS, and signs the talented youngster who was actually born in Texas. Next up is FC Cincinnati, and in my opinion, their biggest problem is defending set pieces, which I really can't explain considering they have quality center backs who are very tall and good aerially. But after losing both Jeff Cameron and Tyler Blackett, they're going to need to sign another center back despite shifting from a back 3 to a back 4. I don't know if Haglund is really prepared for that switch, although he had his best season last season. I think he'll still be pretty good. You still need another center back, so I say partner the former Chelsea center back in Matt Miazga with the would-be former Manchester United center back in Phil Jones. His contract is also, of course, expiring in 6 months, and Manchester United will want to get him off the books as soon as possible. FC Cincinnati could be the perfect spot for him as he's still only 30 years old, but MLS really does seem like a good move in his career at this point. What's up? YouTube tells me that the majority of you who watch my videos aren't subscribed, so let's fix that by hitting that subscribe button in 3, 2, 1. Thanks so much, and back to the video. Columbus Crew are already a pretty well-rounded team, but I think they definitely need an Arturo replacement to partner Darlington Nagbe in that double pivot, or Aidan Morris is definitely the rising star, but will need some competition and certainly rotation in that spot. If I was them, I would pick up defensive midfielder Luis Caicedo, who has significant MLS experience with New England Revolution in 2018 and 19, getting over 2,000 minutes in each of those seasons before being injured and heading home to Colombia. He's now a free agent, so if Columbus have their heads up, they'll pick him up and slide him into their midfield depth. DC United are a team who have done a lot of business recently, and rightfully so, because they were not very good last season. But Wayne Rooney has brought in Christian Benteke and Matthias Klick, of course, bringing these players over from England. Most people don't think so, but I actually see DC United as pretty well rounded. And despite bringing in Mohamed Jeze, who is a quality left back, and they paid over $1 million for him, they still need a backup fullback. Samake is USL level, so I say send him back there and bring in Tyler Blackett, who got significant minutes at FC Cincinnati last year and would make a quality backup left back, and is also versatile, can play center back as well, and mostly he did at FC Cincinnati. And he is perfect for Wayne Rooney because not only is he English with that English experience, but when he broke into the Manchester United first team in 2014, he actually played a few games with Wayne Rooney. So I say it's the perfect combination. Bring him in right now as your backup fullback or backup defender all over the place. With Inter Miami, I won't waste any time because they simply need to re-sign Alejandro Pozuelo. He is now a free agent, which means he could go anywhere. But after bringing him into Miami from Toronto, they need to keep him around. This is such a necessary and obvious move for Inter Miami, who now have an absolutely stacked front line after bringing in Leonardo Zampana from Wolves, Nicolas Stefanelli, and Corentin Jean. All of those for over $1 million in transfer fees, before now, of course, bringing in the former MVP of MLS in Joseph Martinez. If you have Alejandro Pozuelo creating chances for these players, you could be the Inter Miami that fans thought you would be when David Beckham created the club. CF Montreal have made 3 major sales recently, in Alistair Johnson to Celtic for €3.5 million, Georgi Melhalovic to AZ Alkmaar for €6 million, and Ishmael Kone to Watford for €8 million. So they have the money to spend, but they have obviously also lost all of their best players, and even now Kai Kamara has requested a trade, which really tells you all you need to know about the situation in Montreal. This is a major rebuild, and I don't even really know where to start, so I guess I'll just tackle the biggest challenge by finding the next Milhalovic or Kone, somebody they can sign for cheap that is relatively young and can flip after he succeeds in Montreal for a good profit. My pick is 23-year-old Icelandic attacking midfielder Armor Sigurdsson, who went on loan to Venezia last season but didn't really cut it, and is now on loan in Sweden from his parent club CSKA Moscow, where he only has 6 months left on his contract. So if you give them really anything, I would expect them to recall him from loan and send him all the way to Montreal for whatever transfer fee you want to give them. And for him, he can be the star in Montreal, and when he succeeds, you can flip him for a solid profit back to Europe where he wants to be. Next up is Nashville, and I'm really excited about the player I believe they should sign. But first, we need to talk about Ake Loba, because having a DP go out on loan is a really bad look. I'm looking for somebody to play up top with Honey Mukhtar in this signing, because Bunbury and Sapong are bang average, and you shouldn't be doing the MVP like that any longer. Give him a true partner. I would use that DP spot on this, but of course it's occupied by Ake Loba, so my pick is 22-year-old Ayo Akinola of Toronto FC, who obviously has to be bought from them, but with their attacking firepower up front, I don't doubt they'd be willing to sell. He needs to get playing time at 22 years old, and he's going to get limited minutes off of their bench. At Nashville, he would start next to the MVP and be recognized. Those of you who watched the MLS Backus tournament a couple years ago know the talent of this kid, and I really believe this is just a perfect fit. New England Revolution need another winger with Dylan Barrero and Nacho Heel. They're starters at the moment. I think you bring in another winger to not only challenge those two, but you need the rotation in MLS. Preferably, you'd want somebody that can play on either side, and 28-year-old Yamil Assad absolutely fits this bill. Plus, he has a ton of MLS experience with nearly 100 games on his belt, recording 40 goal contributions in his 98 MLS games. completely underrated and would be an astute piece of business for New England, but maybe too astute for them to even be aware of. For New York City FC, re-signing Alexander Collins is obviously a huge priority, but that's boring, so I'm going to find them a Sean Johnson replacement. It looks like they're just going to go with Luis Barraza and allow him to take over the reins, but in my opinion, that's risky, and I'm ambitious, so I like my pick better. I'd go after current Chelsea player Marcus Bettinelli, who of course doesn't really play for them. He made one appearance in the FA Cup over the past 2 seasons for them, but he has shown that he is a championship or MLS level quality goalkeeper in 2020-21 on loan for Middlesbrough, where he conceded 45 goals in 41 games, keeping 13 clean sheets. I think he is absolutely a player who could be picked off from Chelsea, and I think that he wants a place to call home. Sure, London is great living in, but you're in the Chelsea loan system, getting loaned out all over the place, and New York City is a fantastic place to live. I'm sure he'd be fully on board with the move, and Chelsea, why not let him go? Get it done, New York City. Pay attention to these type of players. On to their rivals. New York Red Bulls absolutely need an attacking midfielder to take some of that creative responsibility and focus of the defenders away from Luquinhas so he can do more work. And if Red Bull want to compete, they need to spend DP money here. So my pick is attacking midfielder Ivy Lopez, who is somebody you probably never heard of because he's playing in the Poland First Division. But the 28-year-old Spaniard won the 2022 Polish Footballer of the Year after winning the Golden Boot, scoring 20 goals and tagging along 7 assists to go with that from the number 10 position. If Red Bull bring him to MLS, they will once again be competing for all the trophies. Orlando City seem to have their starting midfield sorted with Araujo, Pereira, and new signing Cartagena. But Felipe Martins does not solve their depth problems in midfield. So I would sign 31-year-old Jan Greguš, who bagged 6 assists on a terrible San Jose team last year, and now currently a free agent. I'm sure he would be down for the move to Orlando. Sure, California is nice to live in, but San Jose is not that great, and Orlando is surely better, especially when you're on a team that is actually competitive. And in my opinion, I think he'd probably displace one of those 3, likely Araujo. Get him in and he will definitely improve Orlando City. Reigning Eastern Conference champions Philadelphia Union are obviously very stacked in every area of the pitch, so the place that I'm going for is up top because Julian Carranza and Michael Ure are a great front 2 pairing, but in the MLS you absolutely need rotation, so I say they should bring in 30-year-old Lucas Cavallini, who bagged 9 goals and an assist last season for Vancouver and is MLS proven. You could likely even get him to take a pay cut from his $1.2 million salary he had in Vancouver because he would want to come to a competitive team that is very likely to win something this season in Philadelphia rather than keeping on a mid-table side or a lower side like Vancouver. Last but not least is Toronto FC, and I found New York City a Sean Johnson replacement because Sean Johnson is the player that Toronto FC need to sign. Anderlecht seem to be their biggest competition for the free agent right now, but you need to be able to convince him that Canada is better than Belgium because that could be the final piece to building an MLS Cup level side in Toronto. Obviously, you can't give him a DP spot, and he knows that, but surely won't have a problem considering who you put in those DP spots. I say give him whatever else you can and make him the final piece to that puzzle that Bob Bradley is building. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please help me reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers by hitting that like and subscribe button. It really helps out the channel. I will see you in 2 days for the Western Conference and all the players that those teams need to sign. I will see you then.